Welcome back to Silver Screen Talks. In a city where flavors tell stories, a battle is cooking that will shake the culinary world. Gao, a street chef with the soul of tradition, faces Paul, a Michelin-star prodigy redefining modern cuisine. It's more than a competition. It's a clash of identities, a journey of redemption, and a test of how far passion can take you. As woks ignite and knives flash, their rivalry turns into something neither could expect. Cook Up a Storm isn't just a food fight, it's a recipe for unforgettable drama. New to the channel? Hit that subscribe button. We bring you amazing movies with detailed explanation which you won't want to miss out. At the beginning of the story, we see a man named Gao. Gao is a street chef who prepares incredibly delicious food. He runs a small restaurant where he creates new and unique dishes for his customers and maintains an exceptionally clean environment. Gao is deeply passionate about his profession. Despite all this, there are memories from his childhood that always make him sad. Gao's father also ran a restaurant and had left Gao with a chef so he could learn how to cook. As a result, Gao grew up without his father, which caused him to harbor intense hatred for him. Gao's father is now a highly successful and wealthy master chef. However, Gao wants nothing to do with him and avoids meeting or talking to him because of the pain of growing up without his father. Gao used to miss his father deeply, but it never seemed to matter to his father. On the other hand, his father felt relieved that no one knew he had a son. Thinking about this makes Gao even sadder, as it feels like his father never wanted to acknowledge him as his son. In the next scene, we are introduced to another chef who is very rich and exceptionally handsome. His name is Paul, and he works in France, cooking for royal families. Paul's dream is to open a restaurant in his home country, China, for his father. To pursue this dream, he leaves France and returns to China. After arriving in his homeland, Paul visits a fish seller one day and asks for a large fish. However, the seller declines, saying he doesn't have any large fish. Just then, Gao arrives and asks the same seller for a large fish. To Paul's surprise, the seller immediately hands over a large fish to Gao. Seeing this, Paul becomes angry and glares at Gao. Gao in turn starts glaring back at Paul. Noticing the tension, the fish seller cuts the fish into two pieces. Despite this, Gao and Paul continue to exchange angry looks at each other. Next, we see Paul's stunning and luxurious restaurant, which is set to open today. The restaurant is incredibly beautiful and opulent, with everything modern and expensive. The decor is lavish and eye-catching. On the other hand, we notice that Paul's restaurant is located directly across from Gao's restaurant. This worries Gao's friends as they fear the new restaurant might steal Gao's customers, and their fears turn out to be true. Attracted by the elegant decor of Paul's restaurant, Gao's customers begin flocking to it. To counter this, Gao's friends come up with a plan and introduce a discount offer at Gao's restaurant. This strategy works, drawing customers back to Gao's restaurant. Eventually, Paul's customers start shifting to Gao's restaurant, leading to tension between Paul's and Gao's teams. Paul's friends accuse Gao's friends of being jealous of their success and resorting to cheap tricks. This conflict escalates, and it is ultimately decided that a competition will be held between the two chefs. The winner will be the chef whose dish has the best taste. At first, neither Paul nor Gao is willing to compete against each other. However, as soon as they face each other, they are reminded of the incident at the fish store. Both decide to teach the other a lesson through this competition. The competition begins with a large fish placed on the table. Paul is given the first chance. Using his exceptional skills, Paul expertly cuts the fish and removes its bones in a quick and unique manner. His method impresses the audience. Paul then passes the fish to Gao, who prepares it using his traditional style. Once Gao finishes cutting the fish, he presents the pieces in a remarkable way. The fish meat separates elegantly from the skin, showcasing a flawless technique that is incredibly difficult to achieve. The audience is amazed by both chefs' talent. During this event, the chairman of the cooking competition, who is present, becomes highly impressed by their cooking styles. He invites both Gao and Paul to participate in an upcoming cooking competition. Hearing about the competition, both Gao and Paul decide to participate, each determined to prove they are the best chef. They silently vow to outshine the other and win. Later, during an interview, Paul talks about his experience cooking in France. He mentions that when he came to China, he noticed people still use traditional cooking methods. This comment is an indirect taunt at Gao, which infuriates him. Meanwhile, It is announced that the cooking competition will begin with a knockout round, and only those who qualify will advance. The winner will get the opportunity to meet the world's most renowned master chef, who happens to be none other than Gao's father. The next day, Paul's friend Mayo visits Gao's restaurant and invites Gao and his friend to dine at Paul's restaurant. Curious, Gao and his friend accept the invitation. At the restaurant, Paul doesn't serve the food himself, but has Mayo present the dishes. The dish appears to be a simple egg and plant pot. However, when Gao and his friend taste it, they are blown away by its unique and delicious flavor. Gao grudgingly acknowledges that Paul's cooking technique is advanced and impressive. Frustrated, he storms into the kitchen with the dish and throws it in front of Paul, accusing him of showing off with fancy food and decorations. This leads to another heated argument between the two. Paul then challenges Gao to a quick meat cooking contest. Gao prepares the meat beautifully and tastefully, impressing everyone with its presentation. Paul, however, confidently claims that he can cook the same meat differently and achieve the same flavor. Using his modern techniques, Paul cooks the meat in a fraction of the time, producing a dish just as flavorful as Gao's. When Gao compares the two dishes, he realizes there's no difference in taste, leaving him disheartened. Overwhelmed by the realization, Gao quietly leaves the kitchen. As soon as Gao returns to his restaurant, he receives a call from a man who informs him that his father wants to meet him. Reluctantly, Gao agrees and meets his father. Filled with anger, Gao confronts him, asking why he called him after so many years. He demands to know why his father never acknowledged him as his son in front of the world. In response, Gao's father explains that he didn't want the world to recognize Gao because of his name. He wanted Gao to succeed on his own merit. "If people knew you were my son, you would never have made it this far in the cooking championship," his father says. He then expresses his wish for Gao to win the competition. Hearing this, Gao responds bitterly, saying, "My victory or defeat shouldn't matter to you. When I needed you the most, I spent my childhood alone. I don't need you now." Gao further declares, "I will surpass you as a chef. The profession that caused me to grow up without you will now see me as its best version. I will prove myself not because of your name, but because of my own talent." Despite his father's attempts to explain further, Gao refuses to listen and walks away, unable to trust anything his father says. The very next day, the cooking competition begins. It's a knockout round. Gao and Paul both arrive at the event. In the competition, one participant has to prepare dessert, while the other has to cook a non-vegetarian dish. Using his modern techniques, Paul creates a dish that is both visually stunning and delicious in a very short amount of time. However, Gao utilizes the entire time to carefully prepare his dish, which impresses the audience immensely. When it's time to present the dishes, the judges taste them and award Gao and Paul the same points because they equally like both dishes. Since their scores are tied, the judges face a dilemma in choosing a winner. At this moment, one of the judges, a master chef, steps forward to make the decision. He announces that while he was impressed with both dishes, but Paul's time management stood out. As a result, Paul qualifies for the knockout round and Gao is disqualified. Hearing this, Paul is overjoyed, but Gao feels deeply disappointed and leaves the competition. Instead of going home or to his restaurant, Gao heads to a gaming station and starts playing video games. While he's there, his guardians, who were entrusted with his care by his father, find him. He console Gao and remind him that winning and losing are a part of life. He asks, should one give up because of a single loss? He then encourages Gao, telling him to work on his weaknesses and advises him not to lose hope because this defeat has given him an opportunity to grow and become better. In the next scene, we see Paul celebrating his victory and having drinks with his friends, who also happen to be the financiers of his restaurant. During the celebration, one of Paul's friends asks him if he would give his female friend, Mayo, the opportunity to represent him in next round of the cooking competition. Paul responds by saying that while he doesn't deny that she's a very good friend, he cannot take her to the competition because Mayo doesn't know how to cook. At that moment, Mayo brings two identical-looking dishes to Paul and asks him to taste them and tell her which one is sweet and which one is savory. Hearing this, Paul and his friends find it quite strange. It is then revealed that Paul's taste buds don't work, meaning he cannot differentiate the taste of any dish. Because of this, Paul has been dependent on Mayo. However, until now, this had been a secret. Mayo then reveals this to Paul's friends and the financiers of the restaurant. Another truth comes to light. Mayo is actually the girlfriend of one of the financiers, and she has been staying with Paul only to use him as a way to reach the cooking competition. The financiers, on the other hand, have only been supporting Paul for their own financial gain. One of them then informs Paul that they are selling the restaurant and plan to use the money to live a comfortable life. Hearing this, Paul feels heartbroken and completely shattered. Without saying anything, he leaves the restaurant and walks away. The disheartened Paul sits by the roadside, drinking. Just then, Gao happens to pass by and, noticing Paul's state, asks him why he looks so upset when he should be celebrating his victory. Paul responds, saying, "Yes, I've qualified for the competition, but in the process I've lost so much." Changing the subject, Paul points to a banner with a picture of a master chef on it and says, "Look, that's my idol." Hearing this, Gao smiles and reveals, "That's my father." Paul is initially skeptical and accuses Gao of joking, but Gao calmly explains, "You think he's a great person, but he's not." Gao then shares his story about how his father abandoned him as a child because Gao didn't want to follow in his professional footsteps. Hearing this, Paul says, "We can't change the past, but we can move forward." Gao suddenly gets an idea for some fun. He says, "True, we can't change the past, but we can enjoy the present." With that, he picks up an empty beer bottle and throws it at the poster of his father. Paul follows suit, and together they smash the poster in a playful act of rebellion. After this, Paul begins to feel better, and this shared moment of mischief marks the start of a new friendship between the two. Gao takes Paul to his restaurant, where Paul finds the financiers of his own restaurant already present. They are busy finalizing the sale of Paul's restaurant. Surprised, Paul asks them, "What are you all doing here?" One of them responds mockingly, "You've already lost your restaurant. Plus, you'll need a partner for the next round of the cooking competition. Now that Mayo has left you, it's best if you focus on your competition and leave this place." Paul retorts, "You don't need to worry about me. As for the competition, I know exactly who my partner will be, and yes, he is deserving." He then declares, "My partner will be Gao. He will join me in the competition." Hearing this, Paul's deceitful friends become jealous. One of them sneers, "Paul, you're going to ruin your career with this decision." Enraged, Paul headbutts the financier and orders all of them to leave the restaurant. Afterward, Gao's guardians ask Paul if he is serious about having Gao as his partner in the competition. Paul replies, "Yes, I trust Gao more than I trust myself." His words bring smiles to everyone's faces. Paul and Gao then begin preparing for the competition. Paul teaches Gao modern cooking techniques, while Gao shares his traditional cooking style with Paul. Gao also reassures Paul, saying, "If your taste buds don't work, don't worry. There's a cure for this condition, and I'll help you overcome it." As they spend more time together and train side by side, their friendship deepens. They experiment with new dishes every day, and their cooking sessions are filled with fun and laughter. While cooking, they even break into spontaneous dances, enjoying every moment. This shared journey becomes a delightful chapter in both their lives. The day of the competition finally arrives, and Gao and Paul are tasked with creating a dessert. Working seamlessly together, they craft a beautiful and delicious dessert in record time. When the judges taste it, they are so impressed that they compliment Gao and Paul, saying they have never tasted such an exquisite dish before. Gao and Paul win the round, securing their place in the finale. In the final round, the challenge is to cook in front of Gao's father, who is one of the judges. Only one of them can represent the team. Paul turns to Gao and says, "You should be the one to compete in the final round and represent our team." However, Gao hesitates and replies, "No, you're a better chef than me. Your techniques and time management skills are exceptional. You should compete, and I'm confident you'll win this competition." Paul, however, insists, "No, Gao, this is your moment. If you want to defeat your father and prove yourself, this is your chance. This is the perfect opportunity to show him that you're better than he ever gave you credit for. You can make him realize that abandoning his own son was the biggest mistake of his life." Moved by Paul's words, Gao finally agrees and thanks him for giving him this opportunity. With determination in his eyes, Gao steps forward to face his father in the ultimate challenge. The night of the competition finale arrives, and Gao prepares to face his father in the ultimate challenge. As the competition begins, Gao's father immediately starts cooking with precision and skill, while Gao stands frozen at his station, lost in memories of his childhood. He recalls how his father abandoned him, leaving him to face bullying from other children. Seeing Gao standing motionless, his father walks over and splashes water on his face, snapping him out of his thoughts. Gao finally begins cooking. Meanwhile, Gao's father creates an extraordinary dish resembling a fiery flame, both visually stunning and delicious. When the judges taste it, they are deeply impressed. Next, it is time for Gao's dish to be judged. To everyone's surprise, Gao presents a simple plate of noodles and places it in front of his father. His father, furious at the simplicity of the dish, glares at Gao. But when the judges taste the noodles, they are astonished by the incredible flavor. Gao then reveals the reason behind his choice. He explains that his father once told him he couldn't even cook something as basic as noodles, and that moment led to his abandonment. This deeply personal statement strikes a chord with his father, who finally understands the emotional weight behind Gao's dish. Overwhelmed with emotion, his father begins eating the noodles, recognizing both Gao's culinary talent and the strength of his resolve. Through this moment, Gao proves to his father and everyone present that he is not only a capable chef, but one of the best. Gao wins the competition, earning respect and admiration. After the victory, Gao and Paul team up to run a successful restaurant together. Their establishment becomes incredibly popular, drawing in large crowds of satisfied customers. With their partnership thriving and their dreams realized, the story comes to a heartwarming conclusion. So this was the end of the movie. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then hit the thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Stay tuned for more detailed explanation of movies. Thanks for watching.